You took over as petroleum minister in 2021, and since then we've seen two major wars in Ukraine and in West Asia, and both of them have had implications for um, India's energy security. And I'm trying to see how we are poised before we come to what we are trying to do here. How has this turbulence shaped our strategy, and are those changes here to stay?
Well, thank you very much for kicking off this event, which I think is in many ways a first of its kind, because we will have the privilege of participation, if I'm not mistaken, by 22 of our states. We will have the participation of uh, the CEOs of a large number of entities which are major contributors and stakeholders. And thank you very much for being here. I mean, you will, I'm sure, not stick to the talking points that my colleagues are often, I accuse them of trying to control the narrative by telling me what I should say and even saying what they think you should say. And I have full faith that you'll deviate from that and we can have a robust
I
conversation.
hope to live up to your
Yeah, I'm
expectations.
sure you will, knowing you. Uh, Let me start by saying that when you talk of global turbulence, I'm a student of history. I was a professional diplomat for 39 years. I've done think tanking for God knows how many years. I've been a minister for 8 years. But if I had to look at the post war history, that is post Second World War, post 1947, after we became an independent country, I cannot seriously think of any period during that extended phase where global turbulence was of this order. There have been phases where tensions have been very high. There have been phases where wars have been fought. But I think if you add the uncertainty quotient to that turbulence, this takes the cake. All right. Yes, I became the minister. I've been a minister earlier, but I was associated with this portfolio, madam, from July 2021. And very soon you had the Russia Ukraine military conflict. Then you had one, then you had the other. And now we have other challenges. Uh, how did we manage to get over that? I think the one point is that over the last 11 years or so, and this I think is the main point, we've diversified our options, we've built resilience, and we have been able to navigate those challenges. And if I don't sound too presumptuous, or you might even say overconfident, I think each of these challenges posed by the turbulence has actually provided us opportunities. And I think that is what has stood us by. And full marks to my boss, who has not only provided the overall direction, but he has stood by us and, he has always guided us all along. I know where you are wanting to go. Why did you buy from here and not from there, etc. But whenever you're ready, I'm ready.
No, no. I'm going to add to your turbulence, and I'm going to talk about Donald Trump. Uh, so
Well, should we come to that sequentially or should we come to it first? Okay, let's start with the.
let's look at. So we are buying 30% of our crude from Russia, and now the Americans have threatened secondary sanctions. What impact do you see on India's oil supply, and what is our backup plan, sir?
Well, first and foremost, madam, I don't feel any pressure in my mind. And I don't think my boss's mind is wired to feel any pressure. And that's where I draw my strength from. But I'd like to have a discussion with you on the hard facts. First and foremost, what are the facts? In February 2022, when the military conflict between Russia and the Ukraine commenced, we were buying, if I remember, 0.2% of our overall crude from the Russian Federation. Today, yes, you are absolutely right. It has gone up considerably. But equally, during this period, India has diversified the sources of supply, and we have gone, I think, from about 27 countries that we used to buy from to about 40 countries now. But more than that, if you go into should you buy from a source one or should you buy from a source two, we have been clear from the day go that we will buy from wherever we have to, because the Prime Minister's commitment is in the final analysis to his consumer, to the Indian consumer. And I think that policy has stood us in good stead. We are probably one of the few. I would have, if I didn't have this enlightened an audience, I might have said we are the only, but no, we may not be the only. But for a country of our size, for a country of our consumption level, why do I say this? In the last 10, 11 years, 16% of the growth in the energy markets, crude oil, has come from India. And if you believe in the analysis of the International Energy Agency, by the way, I saw a statement that someone might be pulling out of there also, but let's leave it at that. They say, a very credible analysis, that in the next 2 decades, 25% of the global growth is going to come from India. Increase in oil demand. Okay, so today Russia is one of the main suppliers. I don't know what the figures were in 2022. Today, I think they produce about 9 million barrels a day. 9 million barrels a day, madam, is roughly 10% of the global production per day and consumption per day. I ask you a hypothetical question. Supposing you take 10% of the consumption off the table, there are two possibilities. One, the rest of the world, the whole world, stops consuming or consumes 10% less, which means what? Which means in a country, let's say, I can pick up any country, some people won't get heating in winter, some people won't get air conditioning in summer, some of the transport will stop flying. So 10% consumption reduction is not an easy thing, or something else will happen. You decide that 10% is going off the market, you don't want to reduce consumption, then you start buying more from the remaining 90%. You know what that would do to prices? The prices which were here would skyrocket. We did an analysis, my secretary who's sitting here and some of my other colleagues, that if more and more people were to buy from the other OPEC sources, you know what would have happened? Prices would have gone up minimum to $130, $140 a barrel. So if we were buying from any source that we could, I think we should be applauded. Not
No, that point is very
so no, but let me come to there's another point of this fact. No, I'm not saying that you are saying it, but some people suggest don't buy Russian oil.
If that oil is sanctioned, sir, then what is our plan?
It's not sanctioned, first of all.
Not yet.
No, never been sanctioned.
No. If it is.
No,
So
I'm
in-
coming. First of
even
all,
before deadline.
first of all, let's do the past, then we'll deal with the future. Another very interesting thing happened. It's not as if countries X, Y, and Z buy. I have some statistics here. I want to share those. And you're saying, what are the papers? Because I did some research. I knew you'd ask. Oil products. Turkey, the largest buyer, has purchased 26% of Russia's oil product exports. Turkey. You know which group they belong to. Followed by China, 13%, and Brazil, 12%. Now we come to LNG, natural gas. The EU was the largest buyer. EU is the European Union, purchasing 51% of Russia's LNG exports, followed by China, 21%, and Japan, 18%. Pipeline gas. The EU was the largest buyer, purchasing 37% of Russia's pipeline gas, followed by China, 30%, and Turkey, 27%. Now, if we have to discuss who's buying and who's not buying, I think It's got stuck. No, don't worry. You know, when my colleague Mr. Jaishankar, when this whole process had started, when he was going for a discussion in the United States, he asked me over the phone casually, what happens if I'm asked about Russian purchases? And I said, friend, you tell them that they buy more in one afternoon. This is early days. They buy more in one afternoon than I buy in a quarter. I think the telephone line must not have been absolutely clear. So he ended up saying, I believe you buy more in one afternoon than I buy in a month. No, I meant in a quarter. Look, the past discussion on buying Russian oil was never subject to a sanction. It was subject to what is called a price cap. And in front of this very distinguished large audience, I have no hesitation in admitting that I'm happy to buy under a price cap. Then the price cap makes me get the oil cheaper. But by the way, I have a simple system. My OMC sitting here, they float tenders for import at our, and whoever can supply the particular grade of crude at that point of time, who is the cheapest, they will award the tender to. Now you come to the most important question. What if? I'm not trained to answer hypothetical what if questions, but I will. I'll ask you, I'll answer it all in the fullness of time. Look, what I've seen is some draft legislation where if you do this, then secondary sanctions will come against XYZ. I've also seen a statement coming from the highest in the land, wherever, I shall not take names, but you will understand, saying that I'm giving you, I don't know, 50 days to sort out this war. Otherwise, I will subject you to something, or we will subject you to a low price cap. Okay? Now, what is the international price of oil today? Should be about 67, 68? 68.5. The price cap was at 60. All right? Where is the price of international oil going to go? Looking at my CMD sitting in the front row, we have a happy and vibrant, only minor disagreement. We keep saying, will it be between 60 and 70 or will it be between 55 and 60? Am I right? Or please, I don't want to quote you. I can take my own position. My own view is the price of oil will come down. It will come down, madam, only because there is more oil available in the international market. Today, two major suppliers of crude are sanctioned. My first submission to you, will those sanctions remain forever? You know whom I'm talking about. Iran next door and Venezuela. Number two, there is more oil coming on the global market from the Western Hemisphere. I mean, countries like Brazil, Guyana, Canada, they're not even OPEC plus members. So, my response, and I'm sorry I've given you such a long-winded response, is that I'm not worried at all. If something happens, we'll deal with it. If, for instance, major buyers of oil, major suppliers of oil just go off the market, well, there was to worry when some of them went off the market earlier, which same thing happened. You either divert. वो हमारे यहाँ कहावत है ना, एक दरवाजा बंद होता है तो दूसरा खुल जाता है. I think we've got a lot of scope in that. There are a lot of new suppliers coming on the market. Our own E&P is going to go up soon. And when will this happen? Let's not draw any inferences. Some statements are made in order to ensure that two disputants settle quickly. Some other statements are made, and you're mentioned, but you're mentioned in other contexts also. Then we clarify the situation for the record. So my answer to your what if is, we'll cross the bridge when we come to it, but I'm not unduly worried because I think we have enough oil. Even when there was this discussion, now when you talk about turbulence, so one of the most worrying points was, and I'll be very open, the people told me that the Straits of Hormuz would be closed. So I would respond as a good student. I said, for 50 years I've been around, I haven't seen the Straits of Hormuz closed, even though every time they say it would happen. But now is the what if. I asked my colleagues, I said, how much stocks have you got? I think on an average, each one of them had 21 days. Each one of them had 21 days. And one of them, I think, I shouldn't name the company, said we got 25 days. Now, therefore, my response was even if the Straits of Hormuz is closed, it's not going to remain closed forever. It will remain closed for 3 days, 4 days. But I have a final one more question, comment to add to this what if, because I think you asked $1 million question. That is, what is everybody? But we need to have this conversation also to reassure people that it's not as simple. That if one were to happen, the other things will also happen. Look, I buy how much? $20 billion of energy from a particular source. They are global actors. They go and do other things. Am I going to be blamed that I am responsible for some of their actions? No. Equally, I buy energy from Russia. If Russia carries out an operation somewhere else, I'm surely, when I started buying, it was not either because of that or as a consequence of, it's when energy becomes available. We are buying from Argentina. I think we bought 2 consignments. We are wanting to buy more from Brazil. I think this situation today fundamentally is characterized, madam, by enough supply. I would say there's more supply. I see the price coming down. If some sources for some reason dry up, yes, there will be some uncertainty. But the end of the day, the question is going to be, do we have the navigational resilience, I'm coining a new word, to steer the ship through? I think I'm very confident that we do have it.
That's good to know. And let me add to your Europe point that they've wired more to Moscow in oil and gas since the war began than they've given to Ukraine in aid. So that says something. I think hypocrisy is the name of the game. But
You use the word. I didn't use the word.
That's fine. I use it all the time.
You can. You are a star anchor. I'm only a minister.
Right. You talked about other doors opening. Could one of those doors be Iran? Because the US is easing pressure on Iran, on the Chinese. Two more questions before we come.
No, no, you go on asking. I'm enjoying this.
So I know that we stopped buying from Iran post the secondary sanctions in 2018-19. Have we talked to the Americans about a possibility of an opening there?
No, I'll tell you something. I used to talk to the Americans in a slightly earlier phase. I'm willing to go public on it. This was during the last phase of the previous administration, and they had we had a backroom channel. Most people know who it was, and he was very active. He was an advisor in the White House, and I used to ask him, "How close are you to finally settling the residual issues with Venezuela and Iran?" And I think the consistent message from him is we are very close. In fact, when it came to the country you just mentioned, I was told that there was some disagreement on one of the lists that they have on proscribed entities. But after that, other things happened, so one doesn't know. But I am an eternal optimist. No situation ever remains the same. I think with the passage of time, discussions between the international agency which is tasked with dealing with that particular issue, that negotiations will start, and hopefully with the passage of time, that country's energy situation and their ability to supply. By the way, don't make a mistake. They're still supplying. We are not buying. That's one thing. It's not that Iranian oil is off the market. I mean, I come across very interesting situations. I'm not going to name countries where I suddenly find such and such consignment is available from such and such country. So when I ask my secretary and my other colleagues, they'll say कि ये तो उतनी तो उनकी production नहीं है जितना they're putting on the market. So again, I'm saying availability is there all over.
But will we start buying?
I will not buy.
Do you see us start buying?
Look, we are a country anchored in the rule of law. If there is a sanction to which we agree, I mean, anybody gets up and places a unilateral sanction, that's a different thing. I'm not obliged. But if it's a sanction which we've accepted, we will not violate it. On Venezuela, similarly, some people told me, Venezuelan crude can't be bought because it's of a particular kind. I said, look, many of our refineries can use Venezuelan crude. They've been buying, and we are owed some money. But I think even that will be sorted out soon. What I would have difficulty with, ma'am, is to put a specific timeline. When will the Iranian or the Venezuelan issue be resolved?
And to buying from the Western Hemisphere, are we buying 10% of LPG from the US? Can you confirm that?
No, you're buying $15 billion last year. I mean, if you look at the figures in the last few months, there is huge high. I mean, if you interview one of some of these CMDs, they will tell you. Today, I read a report. One of them is looking at gas supplies from Alaska. Then I've seen the figure. This 15 billion could be $25 billion. So, but listen, that huge market potential also gives you leverage.
So, are we buying from the US or not?
Of course, we are buying.
10% LPG will start buying?
No, I don't know. That I don't know. These are commercial things. I mean, I am told on good references that their LPG, their LNG certainly is cheaper because they have that, what is it called, that yeah, they know all these technical terms. I tried not to. No, they buy according to thing that's cheaper. LPG we used to buy earlier largely from one source. It is available elsewhere. During the last meeting of the India Energy Week, we signed the LPG agreement with Equinor. Just now, when I was in Norway with some of my colleagues, I think they are also in discussion with more LPG. And I'm told, again, they don't come to us because we don't do the buying and selling. Government only sets in with a plan to provide the ecosystem. I'm told a lot of our companies are talking about LPG purchases from there. No, your LPG purchases are quite significant. For a country which is growing at 6.5%, $4 trillion economy, where the rate of growth of energy demand is 3 times the global average, if you were to start buying 10% from a particular source, it would be a lot of, LPG and so on. I think it might happen. Again, it's not for me to say.
Maybe to reduce the trade deficit. Maybe to reduce the trade deficit.
No, the trade deficit is also, look at other issues involved with the trade deficit. How many Indian students go to the United States? No, I'm just as a guess. How much money do they spend? I mean, I'm past that stage because now I'm at the stage of grandchildren. But people who are children who want to go to the United States, how much does it cost in a elite Ivy League school? $80,000 a year? Yeah. I don't know. I've seen figures of what? $20 billion a year? I don't know. So I don't know how these calculations are done. But believe me, I would be very careful in putting, figures, because there might be other figures available. I mean, here our energy imports are going on, other things are happening. But also you look at the future. Again, I don't want to sound arrogant, but when we moved from being the 5th largest economy to the 4th largest, or when we moved from the 10th largest to the 5th largest economy, who were we competing against? We were competing against countries which are essentially growing at 2% or less. The UK, Japan, and Germany, which will be if we become the 3rd largest economy soon. And you're growing at 6.5%. So my point is that the other part, your trade partners also look at the potential your market holds for them to increase their export. And that's, of course, the subject on which you should interview Mr. Goel.
I will, sir. Now let's talk about the pivot that you're steering. The oil exploration, new oil exploration and hydrocarbon production. Why is this initiative unique and why do we need it now? Why this pivot?
Well, it's unique for a number of reasons. One is that I don't think we've paid as much attention to E&P in a lot of time. I personally believe that the period between 2006 and 16 is what I call the lost decade, because we had problems with the kind of contracts which were signed earlier. They ran into trouble, litigation, and then they just stopped. Then along came Mr. Modi in 2014, and when the government got its figures right, from 2016 we started off. So we've done a lot of things. We moved from production sharing agreements to revenue sharing agreements. But more than that, we opened up, out of our 3.5 million square kilometers of sedimentary space, we've opened up 1 million square kilometers. In the 10th round of open acreage licensing policy or OALP, we are offering what 257,000 square kilometers of bid. This is the largest ever. I don't know. There may have been some earlier, but from what I read in the statistics, probably the largest ever bid. When we did the ninth round of OALP, 38% of bids came in this 1 million square kilometers, which was opened out, no-go area. Earlier, what happened, I'm seeing my friends from the Navy and Coast Guard sitting here. If you ever wanted to do exploration, they would use their clout and say, nahi, ye to, this no-go area must be there because we are operating here. Or DRDO used to say, no wonder the Prime Minister decided that you guys are doing a great job, but I'm still opening up 1 million square kilometers. So that gives you the extra stuff. Plus, some of the other things that is happening, my friends from the on the exploration side, I see CMD ONGC sitting here. He's dug more wells this year than I think he has in the last 37 years. What, 500 wells? More than 500? 578 wells. Madam, an offshore well costs $100 million. An onshore one costs 4 million. And I'll tell you one very major thing which nobody seems to want to talk about. Our policies earlier were wrong. We used to have CMDs heading these important companies. They would come for tenures like what, 4.5 months, 6 months. Now, if you have been made, let's say if you were to be made CMD of one of those companies, what would you say? Invest a lot of money in ONP, in ENP? No, you'd say, let me make sure that my quarter-on-quarter profit, that looks better. So, I think we started appointing CMDs and very good ones for full tenures. It showed results. There is a mindset change, but that mindset change has been backed by the government through what now I'm coming to the main point, the ORD Act. The fact of the matter is that the previous legislation was a what, 1948 vintage. It was not just for the oil sector. It was for mining as well. So whether you wanted to have a mine in Orissa or a petroleum lease, in the Andaman, it's the same law that applied. So insofar as mining is concerned, in 1976 they got a new law, but for petrol leases, we were stuck with the same law. So it's a revolutionary change. But more than the provisions which I brought to happily share with you, we've already put them out a number of times, or the regulations which are being drafted. The defining feature of these is that we didn't do it sitting in Shastri Bhavan. We had widespread stakeholder consultation. My colleagues looked at the best practices in all the other countries, borrowed some from here, borrowed some from there. Then we put out the draft legislation for stakeholder consultation. We still got comments on it. And we incorporated the comment. And I keep telling my friends from BP and Shell who are sitting here, I keep telling them, look, if there are other changes you want, don't hesitate, bring them. Because the Prime Minister's mindset is, we have to change this and we have to do ENP now because it's part of our overall philosophy, our self-reliance, Atmanirbhar, etc. But we think that with all the fundamental progress we are making, and we made a lot of progress in biogas, biofuels, we've gone to 20%, green hydrogen, great story, but you will still need traditional energy for a long time. For that, you must do ENP. So we brought this act, and even after the act was finally cleared by both houses of parliament, we put the implementing regulations on the net, and we got some changes. We've incorporated those changes, some very major ones. But let me give you a very short few points on how the salient features of the ORDA Act are. I mentioned putting mining and petroleum operations in the same bucket. That was the single permit system for all types of mineral oil operation. That's a very important thing. Otherwise, you go from one authority to the other. By the time the second one operates, the third one is not ready. So, single permit system for all types of mineral oil. Clarify the meaning of the term mineral oil. A new framework for sharing of resources and infrastructure, providing stability in operations, both in terms of tenure of lease and conditions. To me, stability and predictability are the two most important things in any area where large amounts of capital expenditure are involved. Because what's the point of somebody raising the capital and then halfway through you decide you change your policy? And then a person is left high and dry and they raise money to do this. Decriminalization and the adjudicating mechanism, no midway changes like imposition of cess, royalties, protecting of. We said, look, what we finally agreed to, that's it. And I'll make a confession. Something that we did in the last few years, if we had the ORD Act, LKG, we'd never have been able to do it because people would have sued us. So we would rather have that. But more important, I think the Act has been well received. It's beginning to show results. I have seen more evidence of our collaborators teaming up with our companies. Sometimes a foreign collaborator, big oil major, energy major, with a private sector company and with the OMCs or the public sector company. So it's beginning to show, and I'm very confident that capital expenditures involved, gestation is long, but you are beginning to see the results.
And how does it make investment in oil fields easier, this amendment? And you said that you've been talking to energy executives globally. You've engaged with some of them in Vienna, the likes of Shell and BP. Do you see that enthusiasm? Do you think that they will come and be part of this?
Look, the act is only the legislative framework that is helpful. But there are other things happening as well. For instance, what did we do in the past? We invited some of them and said, come and prospect here. These are very expensive operations. My favorite story these days, which I'm afraid I'm repeating too often, I have to change the story now. Guyana. I'm told that they dug 47 wells and it's only on the 48th well that they found the oil. But what were we doing? Supposing you found the oil, then the tendency, at least so people suspected, was, "Bhai, ye to hamara natural resource hai. Ours first." Why would anybody come? Why would anybody come? Why would anybody invest in your wanting to keep a sign? Now it's very different. Now you tell them, look, you have a expertise, you have known, demonstrated capacity. Like I'll give you one example. I think Oil India and Petrobras. Petrobras is a Brazilian company. They have a lot of demonstrated expertise in offshore and doing seismic surveys, etc. So they told, I was in Brazil when we started it, that you come, we will compensate you for the technical services and technical assistance you provide as per market rate. If we strike oil, you will have the right of first refusal. So I think that's a very encouraging thing from the other side. I see similar arrangements also with other companies. Some other things will be announced today and as we go along. I don't want to prejudge it, but this Petrobras OIL, Oil India Limited, is a case in point.
And you've compared Andaman to Guyana. We're expecting something.
Well, you know, it's my job as minister to provide a encouraging narrative. I never said that we found a Guyana. I've said that many Guyanas are to be found. So I don't stop at one Guyana. Why do I say it? Look, the fact of the matter is when any of them, private sector or public sector, digs a well and finds oil, he or she is required to report it to the Director General of Hydrocarbon. By the way, the Chief Minister of Assam has reported a finding this morning. I don't know whether, I think with OIL, etc. But I don't know. I mean, I'm saying, so they have reported, and I picked out 18 of these reports. Then I started analyzing them, and I've started talking about them. One of them says what? 8 million metric tons of 8 million MMTOE. Kya hota exactly? Million metric tons of oil equivalent. Yeah. Then one 8 million, another one 5 million. So obviously they're finding oil. Now it's a question of persistence. I had a query the other day, somebody, up to 2005, we did this. After that, you guys haven't pursued. People have to put money in it. If the company changes, that's why I said after 2006, for the 10-year period, it was lean. Because of the past experience, people didn't want to persist with what they're doing. This is capital expensive, intensive. It requires stamina and the gestation. Sometimes you'll hit straight. I mean, one of my colleagues was explaining to me, you go to different places. You find oil in some, then you have to narrow down, find the direction, etc. But it's happening. And there are particular wells. Now, what we are telling our collaborators is, listen, you don't spend your money. We will cover your expenses to come and do that, which will make sure that their boards find it easier to appeal. Otherwise, if you go to a board and say, we want to put so many $100 million for investment in India, they turn around, why, bhai, yahi kar lo. So I think this is the overall change which has come about.
And there have been instances in the past where companies have won bids, but they've not developed oil fields. So how do you make sure that
Come again.
companies have won bids, but they've not developed oil fields?
No, not one. Many of them. And I think they are getting the correct response now. We're just cancelling them. Because it's very easy. What you do is you bid in a large number, quote unrealistic thing, become L1, and then you sit on it. That means nobody else can come. And then when you do, I'm sorry, there was a little bit of, should I say it or not? Little bit of earlier period, there was collusion on our side also. We should have taken more drastic action of the kind we are taking now. How can you justify somebody who's won a bid 12 years ago, and every time you talk to them, abhi ho raha, abhi ho raha, abhi ho raha. Nahi bhai, nahi hoga. And on that basis, you're raising money in the outside market. No, the whole thing comes full circle, and we will contest those.
You also said in the beginning that 22 states are participating in today's dialogue. States, I assume, are important stakeholders. What's in it for them, and why should they get on board?
Madam, they are the most important stakeholders. I keep repeating that if you find oil, I quoted the Chief Minister of Assam because he made a statement this morning. Who will get the revenue from it? The state will get it. The company will invest. I mean, again, I'm sorry, I come back to one company because the CMD is sitting in front of me. They invested, 1,000 crores in that particular state? Little more than 1,000 crores. But that state was not forthcoming. Till there was, in response to a parliament question, I said in parliament, I said, if the state government doesn't want to utilize its own resources, what can I do? And I didn't go beyond the naming part because we were talking about the state, but they granted the petroleum license subsequently. And that is the spirit I want. A lot of people don't realize that if you have a major oil discovery or a major gas discovery, the state changes. I can give you a personal experience. The chief minister of an important state, whose government is an ally of our party, came to see me and brought a lot of people along. I had my colleagues. And he said, we were talking about setting up a refinery in that state. And I said, yes, we've done this. We are committed to it. This is what we are going to do. And then the chief secretary of that state tells the chief minister, said, wherever a refinery comes up or any oil is found or a refinery comes up, the economy of that place is drastically changed and it happens very quickly. So I asked him, how do you know? He said, my father was in the IOCL. Now, makes sense. Look, if you look at countries, I was in Europe, I was in Norway, Austria and this thing. Norway, before they found the oil in, when was it, 1970? Somewhere around that. It's very different. Now it's very different. So I think that positive, it's not a spin-off, it's a bonanza which comes when you find energy of any kind. But by the way, our energy story is not just this, it's also the biofuels. We were at 1.4%, we are at 20% today, we've done it 6 years in one. But the real story, I think, which is not known, is the green hydrogen story. We are, I think, the only country in the world which is awarded tenders of this size. I think one of my companies awarded a 10,000 ton a green hydrogen thing in your Panipat plant, won by an Indian company. Then another company, I think, is it HPCL? HPCL has gone a slightly smaller tender, which a company in Abu Dhabi has won. But if they can get this done, but the good news is the price is coming down. Earlier I used to be told, green hydrogen is the energy of the future. Why? All you need is sunlight, sunshine, and an electrolyzer. And then all it produces by way of emission is water vapor. So I used to say, क्यों नहीं बनता जी? Price बहुत high है. When I first spoke to the US Energy Secretary, she said we must do 1 for 1 for 1, which is 1 kilo for $1 in 10 years. So when I looked around, the lowest price then was what, $5.50? It was then. Now the IOCL tender has come below $4. I think so. And the HPCL tender has come even below that. Now, tell me if we can replicate this and have more and more green hydrogen used in our refineries, and we bring the price, say, below $3, won't there be public pressure to say you spend $150 billion on, imports of energy every year? Why don't you give some of that money and raise the green hydrogen profile? So great things are happening there, some of which we have not captured.
85% of our crude is still imported. So,
More.
so
I saw a figure 88 the other day. It's not that our production is not going up. The consumption is going up so far, but you're right, 85 plus.
right. So as we set up these domestic oil fields, how much can they change this number? And do we have a target that we've set for ourselves, say in the next 5 years or 10 years?
I don't like talking about targets because whoever set the target for today some time ago, it's not good to remind ourselves how back we are from the target. No, let me put it this way. Your overall energy consumption is also being altered by other things. I mentioned biofuel. When you go to fill your car, you're getting E20, that's 20% biofuel already mixed. So 20% less of this thing. Look at the EVs which are coming on the market. Now, I don't know EVs, the compressed gas driven cars, all those things are also happening. My own view is that by 2030, we will get a good idea how much our ENP, I'm very confident on the ENP part, but how much of the green hydrogen takes off, how much of the other energy sources take off. But in the foreseeable future, if the assessment of the IEA, International Energy Agency, is right, that 25% of the increase in global demand will come from India in the next 2 decades, then I'm afraid you're not looking at wiping that 85% off. What you're looking at is slowly increasing ENP, bringing the other sources down, so the need of crude oil imports will come down over a period. There have been studies done, I'd be happy to share them with you, but I think they're all subject to so many variables. What happens if the. Now, EVs are taking off beautifully, but I hope the battery related issues, lithium related issues, they can be resolved, and you can get the critical minerals and whatever else is required to keep that journey moving ahead. Again, I make an honest confession. Unless the grid is green, EVs are not. They're exciting, but they're not the total answer. I am therefore putting a lot of personal effort into making sure that the hybrids, that is, you use in the car up to a particular, say 40% till 40 kilometers an hour, you're driving on biofuels, and then if you're driving beyond, the battery is charged. On those kinds of vehicles. So I think that's a great future in that as well.
Right. I've overshot the 30 minutes allotted to me, and I know you have
You
a
crossed
packed
it. No, I don't
agenda.
mind.
Yeah, great. So I wanted to ask you, how has technology, especially AI, impacted oil exploration? Has it boosted productivity?
I want to simplify that to make sure that I don't give a wrong answer. Is AI being used? I think the answer is yes. Is it being used in refinery operation? I think the answer is yes. How much has it helped avert problems? I'm not so sure, but I think it's a very helpful trend. On the eve of the Prime Minister's visit, for one of his foreign visits where he was attending, I think, an AI related summit, I think it was in Paris, we did an internal study in the Petroleum Ministry with our oil companies, and I was very impressed with the extent to which AI was being used. I tried to put that information in the public domain, and I was told by my advisor sitting here to curb my enthusiasm and said, let another more solid basis go. So when you are asked a question like this, I can give you a precise answer that this is happening. But it's happening.
Right. The world over countries are talking about ending new oil exploration. And here we are launching this mega project. Do you face pushback from governments or climate groups?
There was a guy in a company called Shell in 1976. He was an economist, and he wrote a very famous paper saying that oil will peak by 2000, the year 2000. Why oil will peak, madam? It means that nobody will want fossil fuel or crude oil anymore. 1976 ho gaya. A lot of people actually took this guy seriously. Some of them even made bad economic decisions. If you were to ask the same set of people, economists in these companies, today we are in 2025, July, by when will oil peak? I can bet my bottom dollar most people would not want to answer that question. And those who will answer it will give you a very far date. They will not say कि अभी वो तो 1976 में उसने बोला 2000 में हो जाएगा. Nobody will even say कि 2030 में होगा या 2040 में होगा. Look, when this business started, I was a little worried because it's so easy to talk about climate change without knowing the reality. Yes, when I first joined the Council of Ministers, I'm talking about 2017, yes, we wanted to get a lot of this thing, no good, no good. When I became Petroleum Minister in July 21, no fresh investment is going into it, but all that has changed. Why has it changed? Because of drill, baby, drill, or no? I think it's changed because of a ground reality. The ground reality is that even if you want to make the transition, and we are very serious, and we're the only country which is, I think, the only country which has met its Paris commitment. But when you want to transition, you transition from the present to where you want to transition to. You must have the resources for that transition. So I think we are doing well. Biofuels, 20%, green hydrogen, we're really stepping on it. Compressed biogas, compressed natural gas, the cars, two-wheelers. By the way, 70% of our vehicular traffic on the roads is two-wheelers and three-wheelers. And bulk of them are going to be on replaceable batteries. So we are making the transition, but I don't think anybody wants to put a date on whether you call it a tipping point or a phase-out point.
I think it's a very interesting time to be an oil minister in the age of climate activism
You
and
mean
energy
interesting?
transition. I said
I
interesting.
thought you would say challenging.
It's a non-committal adjective.
Okay.
Interesting. You can take
Okay.
it whichever way
Yeah.
you want. But great. I think I'll wrap with an old oil joke. The easiest way to find oil is to drill where your neighbor found it. But I guess you're not waiting for neighbors or luck to strike.
No, but there's not something to that. It's actually true. I mean, if the Andaman Sea has it and some people found it there, oil is not a thing, is a commodity which once it reaches there, it enters the parking lot and stays there. It also flows. So the reasonable basis, if he's finding oil in the wells there, that you dig a little more, you'll find more of it there. That's why I haven't been lampooned totally. Some people have taken me on social media, but that I get in any case. तो ये कैसे कहां से ज्ञाना क्या बोला मैंने नहीं बोला ज्ञाना मिल गया मैंने कहा कई ज्ञाना मिल सकते हैं if you persist with the digging.
Right. Thank you, Minister Puri.